Hello, welcome to the Citrus Garden. My name is Christina. This is a reading for the Twin Flame Union. I'm reading the energy of the connection, so it is meant to be for both twins, not specifically one person. The main focus of your reading today is what's your current energy, how can you shift your focus, and where is an area of growth. So I've already pulled the cards, and I feel like this reading feels very much connected to the last Twin Flame Union reading that I did, the one called Reflecting Wholeness. So I will link it above if you haven't watched that. I would suggest watching that first because I am going to go into like more detail of what that energy was talking about, because I think I pulled on something there that was important. So starting with the bottom of the deck energy, we have here the Empress, the Five of Materials, and the Six of Materials, which is incredible because this is the entire point of the message today, is that in the Twin Flame connection, before you come into physical union, I feel like this is what needs to happen, is kind of how it's feeling today, where this whole idea of reflecting wholeness for each other, where one of the twins has perhaps a specific skill set, or what the Empress I see as being like someone who has a full understanding of their gifts and knows how to use it, is how I see this Empress card generally. And then the Five of Materials, of course, talks about like feeling out in the cold, right? Like, or feeling abandoned, or like it's a lack mentality, kind of like this could also be like a wounding or an area that is needing development in the other. So there's no necessarily, I'm not designating this as divine feminine or divine masculine at all, because if you have some sort of area of giftedness, your twin is perhaps in this Five of Material place in that similar aspect, but the same thing for your twin. They have an area of giftedness or like awareness of their skills and that kind of thing, which means that you are going to have this aspect, the area of lack, I'm putting in quotation marks. So it's always sort of a reciprocal mirroring effect in different aspects of your life, and I hope that makes sense. And so the whole point of the Twin Flame connection is to heal this aspect, right? In both twins. There's something about this aspect that is present in both people in different aspects of their lives, but the great thing about the connection is that there is this Six of Materials energy, which is the coming together of both counterparts in order to heal this experience, right? It's like you can pull on your twins' sort of energy. Well, I shouldn't phrase it like that. It's not that you're pulling on the twins' energy, but you can use sort of the image or the reflection that they present in sort of their full giftedness in order to take yourself out of this place, right? If there is an area of that for you. And so it's just being further emphasized with like this. That's the whole idea with all the sort of bottom of the deck cards, because this Tiger card came out yesterday as being an area where there has perhaps been a wounding and has caused almost like a defensive kind of strength, where it's like you are strong and independent. However, there is sort of like a pain or a wounding here that is not quite the ideal sort of scenario, in my opinion. And then here you have the two serpents, where it's like this one sort of more at the beginning stage. This one is the full embodiment. It's this energy, right? So it talks about like having like the full vision or the full picture, that kind of thing, but entirely the same. It's like within a certain aspect in your life. And I don't want to put examples on that because I feel like it's going to be very specific to you and your journey. And I don't want to like influence anyone to thinking that that's what it is for you. I hope that makes sense. But you have here abundance and harmony, which I love so much. This abundance card came out in yesterday's reading as being like connecting the dots. So one twin is working on connecting the dots, while the other one is in this harmony energy of stillness, balance, and skill is kind of how this one feels to me, right? Because it's like balancing stones. It's like they've mastered some sort of aspect in their life while the other one is figuring it out. And that's true of both people, right? It's always going to be that sort of reciprocal mirroring dynamic where you, whoever you are, if you're the DF or the DM, are working on something that your twin has already mastered. And likewise, you have mastered some other aspect of your life where your twin is working on or connecting the dots. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that's basically the reading. You could stop watching here if you wanted, but I am going to go into the current energies because you have here the dragon and the butterfly, which this card, again, so I'm just emphasizing, this dragon card came out yesterday in the DF reading. However, what I want to say about this card, it's not saying that you, DF, are more enlightened or have a better understanding of a situation. Perhaps in one aspect, in one area of your dynamic, you are in this dragon energy, absolutely. While the counterpart is in the butterfly. But there is another aspect in your life that perhaps you're not seeing, where your counterpart has a much better understanding of a certain situation or dynamic or whatever it is, where you're just sort of getting your wings, basically. So it's always going to be that kind of thing. And the energy of the reading today is wanting to bring that dynamic into focus, because I feel like there's this energy here of like, or just generally in the Twin Flame Collective, when I sort of engage in that energy, there's this dynamic that makes me uncomfortable, where the DF readings are always like, DF, you're doing everything, you're amazing, you're awesome, your DM is going through a major tower moment, they're figuring things out, and I don't like that dynamic. It's like, no offense, DF, but your shit smells too, right? Like, it's that kind of thing where there's not, like, the closer that you are to physical union means that there shouldn't be any sort of, like, separation in terms of someone is the DF, someone is the DM. In that sort of twin dynamic, there should always be a kind of, like, harmonious melding where it's almost like you should absolutely resonate with both of those energies, is kind of how it's feeling today. So that's what I'm gonna just leave it at. I hope that doesn't it may trigger you, I don't know, or just make you think about it, or make you a little bit uncomfortable in order to sort of see if that is true for you. Basically, that's how I feel about it, but you may feel differently. So we have the Prism and the Resistance card, which is just like, I just feel like it's like showing me basically the same message in different representations in cards, where the Prism is the dragon eye, right? The one who sees or has almost like an observer's perspective on a situation or an experience. And because of this, the Prism, it's like you've reached, one person in the dynamic has reached the stage where they can use their filter of experience in order to shine light on a certain situation. The other one is in an area of resistance in terms of like still figuring it out, still kind of like it's a two of materials energy, which is talking about like trying to balance things, perhaps learning a new skill. There is resistance and there is sort of effort that is needing to be put into the situation. But they are sort of learning, right? It's like the master versus the student. And keep in mind, it's for both twins, where one person's a master in one dynamic, while the other is a student. And then the other person is now a master in a different dynamic, while the other is a is a student. I feel like I'm being repetitive there, so I'm just gonna move on. But this energy here, the current energy that wanted to be clarified, because I feel like in yesterday's reading was a very clear example of what I'm trying to talk about, where the Divine Feminine reading was extremely sort of powerfully aware of their energy and how to express it. It's like the message was just absolutely just coming out of me in like a very clear form, while the Divine Masculine reading was much more sort of like trying to get a grasp on what it is that they're trying to say, that kind of thing. So it's all of this where it's like one is very clear, the other one is figuring it out. And it's just further emphasized by this energy. The Rose Phoenix, which is the peak, the pinnacle, the mastery, the completion, the wholeness. But the one card is also sort of lovely in that, like, it's like the other twin benefits from this experience, right? Because of the sort of oneness, the unity that happens specifically between like a twin flame connection, is that the more this one sort of shares their mastery and their completeness and wholeness, the more that they share that, because that's what sort of the prism talks about. It's like using your experience or your mastery or understanding to actually have an effect or shine that light, or use that your filter of experience to express a certain idea or vision or something like that, absolutely benefits the other one who is in this energy, which is resistance, of like having to figure things out still. Also like surrendering. So there was another image that came through as I was preparing for this message, to sort of summarize the energy of yesterday's readings, because I feel like there was a lot of information there, but a more concise example that was given to me by my guides was IKEA. So if you've been to IKEA before, you know that once you sort of go in through the showroom, there is a set path that you need to take, right? And it's like kind of like there are like arrows on the ground to tell you which direction that you're supposed to go in, which is the resistance energy, right? It's like there's a certain amount of steps that you need to take. There is a path, there is a progress. It's best to just sort of surrender, because I know that most people, well, some people who go to IKEA who don't like IKEA, it's kind of like you have to go in and get the thing that you need and get out. But it's much easier if you just sort of surrender to the process, go through the steps, follow the arrows on the ground to sort of get where you want to go. Because although there are shortcuts in IKEA, in the showroom, it's easy to get lost if you don't follow the arrows, right? You could end up going just in circles and like never finding the exit. That's if you try and like go through the shortcuts without sort of like reading the signs. I hope that makes sense. Okay. But it's like in this twin flame connection, one twin has already gone through the showroom once, right? And then you sort of meet at the middle. It's like you run into your twin after you've gone through that cycle. And now it's like you've met at that point, but now your twin has to go through that cycle that you just went through. You've got what you need. You can go home and start assembling the furniture while your twin goes through the showroom on their own in order to figure out like what it is that but I feel like because it's a twin flame connection, you share that energy where it's like one person can start assembling the furniture while the other sort of gets something else that perhaps you didn't notice or didn't think that you needed, or that kind of thing, right? So it's kind of like it's a partnership in that way, where one, like, you kind of have to do certain aspects of the dynamic by yourself, individually, something that's important to you, where you have your specific skill set or experience that you can absolutely use and start building on your own. Whereas your twin has a different set of experiences or skill set or gifts that they will need, and then you can come together, but there is sort of the independent part where you have to complete some part of the journey independently before that sort of coming together can happen. Okay. Anyways, so that's what these cards are talking about. The Page of Voices and the Knight of Materials, which is absolutely like sort of getting a new perspective and then moving forward with it. But then you have here the 10 of Materials and the 10 of Inspiration, which is all of this. It's both 10's energy, which is a completion, right? It's like, but this is one person going home to build the furniture, while this one follows the arrows in the IKEA, right? They're still in the IKEA, you're at home building. It's kind of how it feels to me. And then here, where you have the Queen of Voices and the Star, which is such an interesting combination, because the Queen of Voices, to me, this one in this deck, usually it talks about clarity, but this one is actually sort of like having a lot of confusion, actually, because there's a lot of sort of energy here. It's like the Queen of Voices does have a very sort of strong sense of who they are, and can maintain their clarity even if there's sort of chaos and confusion in the environment. So that's how I'm seeing this Queen of Voices. Sorry, did I say Queen of Materials? Queen of Voices. The Queen of Voices can absolutely do that, while this is the one who's in resistance, right? It's like having to maintain your focus and your clarity, even though there's sort of external environmental influences that are disruptive or intrusive or just like confusing, basically. The Star is absolutely free of that. It still has that sort of clarity element, right? But it's like there's no resistance. This is the one that can just do sort of a task and it just goes smoothly. There's mastery, there's wish fulfillment, there's all of this sort of star success energy with this one. So it's like these are the two energies that the twins can be in, where it's like one is maintaining focus through a chaotic environment. The other is in this just period of like I don't want to say happiness, even though it can be that, but more so just like clarity and clear purpose, right? But because you're connected, this energy is absolutely shared between the two of you. It's so fun. It's so funny though, because when I was preparing for this reading, I was in this energy, the Queen of Voices, right? It's like I was having to focus really hard on getting myself in front of the camera today. But then as I was pulling on this energy, it just like I had a download. It was like my mood was instantly lifted, right? Because I could just feel that I was like pulling on, or it's not pulling. I was tapping into this energy, the other side of it, right? And so you absolutely have that ability that if you are in sort of like a confused, or it doesn't have to be confused, but more so like there's a lot of external forces or energies that are sort of impeding on your ability to stay focused, that kind of thing. You can absolutely tap into the energy of the connection in order to get some sort of clarity or direction, or just to make you feel better, right? That's kind of how it's feeling today. But anyways, so I'm going to shift to how can you shift your focus? And we have here these 3 cards. The Gazelle, which also came out in yesterday's DM reading. And then the Elephant and the Vulture, which is further emphasizing this dynamic, right? One person is destroying obstacles in some way or cleansing. With the Vulture, I see as being like cleansing some aspect or area of their life and sort of a demolishing, I don't want to say demolishing, that sounds way too, well, perhaps like, or just breaking down obstacles, right? That's what this elephant is talking about. Sorry, my nose is itchy. And then while the other is in this sort of state of peace, of stillness, of presence, I often see this as being like a meditation card. It's like you have sort of your center, connecting to your center, just being peaceful, right? It's like while the other is in this energy that's very much not peaceful, very much not peaceful. So there is always this sort of dynamic where sometimes that could be that you can feel that, right? It's like if you are in this state where you're just sort of the gazelle and just like being in an energy of peace. I've mentioned this in other readings where you can sometimes feel when the other one is going through this energy, because it's like that energy does get transferred into your space or into your energetic sort of aura if you are very tapped in and tuned into what your other person is doing. I mentioned the show Peripheral a lot because sometimes I get a lot of downloads when I'm watching like movies or reading books and all that. There's a scene there's a scene in that show where the main character, I can't remember her name, Flynn, the main character in that story, she goes to the future and has like sort of a simulated body, right? It's like it's not her body, like she's not actually going, it doesn't matter. That part doesn't matter, but she's in the future and she connects with somebody in there. This is how I see the twin flame dynamic, where they have technology where they can share their experiences or their energy. It's like she would have like a split screen almost, where like one side is what she can see and the other side is what the other person is seeing, and they can share sort of their physical sensations, what they're experiencing, that kind of thing. Also, of course, like communication at a distance, right? So they could be at a distance, but see what the other is seeing, feel what the other is feeling, and communicate in that sort of technological, I'm putting in quotations. Of course, it's not technology, it's energy, right? Communicate through energy is basically what this dynamic is. But it's like the twin, the other person that she was connecting with was recovering from a hangover. So when they connected, it was like she felt sick, and he was like, oh, it's probably you're probably feeling my hangover right now. That's what this energy is, where she asked him, the person that she connected with, what do I feel like? And he made a joke that, oh, you feel like rainbows and unicorns. Anyways, that's how I'm seeing this energy, where like because of this connection, even though you may be in different energetic states or going through different tasks or whatever, the energy between you is shared, which can be beneficial, but also means that you will feel sort of the anxiety if they're feeling that, or if they're feeling ill or whatever. It's like you can absolutely tap into that energy, but you can also dial it down. You can also dial it down, because it was like he had to modulate his energetic output to her so that she didn't feel the negative aspects of his hangover. I hope that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to pause there. I'm going to move to the extended, which is posted immediately after this. You can watch that right away. I do have other videos if you're interested in watching those. Thanks so much for sharing your energy with me, and I'll see you in the next one.